In the 2023 film, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, written and directed by James Gunn, the intergalactic crew of misfits led by Star-Lord go head-to-head with the villainous High Evolutionary, who has ties to one of the Guardians, specifically Rocket Raccoon. In this video, we'll explore how the film writes effective flashback scenes that serve multiple purposes in the story. Per usual, there will be spoilers to the story of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, so I recommend checking it out before proceeding further. As a general story overview, this third Guardians film builds on the previous two films, as well as story beats involving the Guardians from other movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. When the Guardians are attacked by Adam Warlock at their home base of nowhere, the crew races to find a passcode key that will help an injured Rocket Raccoon. Star-Lord, Nebula, Drax, Mantis, Groot, and an alternate timeline Gamora eventually battle the main antagonist, the High Evolutionary, who seeks to create a perfect race of creatures in a perfectly manufactured world. We learn that Rocket was one of the High Evolutionary's experiments who escaped, and that the High Evolutionary needs Rocket's brain to unlock further secrets to making a perfect species. The film unveils a series of flashback sequences that play as recapped memories in Rocket's mind, often while he lays incapacitated in the medical bay of the Guardian's ship. The film opens up on one of these flashbacks where we see a young Rocket in a cage with other small raccoons as a large menacing hand reaches for him. So for the first time in the series, we're learning more information about Rocket's backstory, which provides an emotional spine for the third film. Most of the flashbacks are presented in chronological order, so we experience a linear progression of these crucial years in Rocket's life. By giving us these flashback sequences, the filmmakers help us to draw closer to Rocket's emotional arc, and we come to understand how he became the character he is in the present day. By design, the flashbacks get us to sympathize with Rocket because he went through a terrible experience being enslaved and experimented on by the inhumane High Evolutionary. The flashbacks also build up the threat and character of the High Evolutionary, setting him up as a formidable antagonist. We see the villain in present-day sequences, but witnessing how he hurt Rocket in the past makes us dislike him even more. Also, his appearances in the flashbacks help to convey more exposition about his ideology and clarifies his motivation for his actions. We see why he is experimenting on many animals and also how he sees their lives as expendable. One of the key aspects of the High Evolutionary's character is that he sees himself as a godlike figure who acts without perceivable consequences. This quality makes our heroes like Rocket and the rest of the Guardians seem more fragile in comparison, as they don't have the same level of power and influence as the High Evolutionary. The flashback sequences also help to flesh out Rocket's character and his capacity to develop relationships with a surrogate family, which later explains his connection to the Guardians. In the flashbacks, we see Rocket bonding with other imprisoned animals, including Lila, Teeths, and Floor. Several of the flashback scenes are staged inside their cages, and we see them piecing together a life through conversations and shared dreams. One of the most touching scenes in the film is where the animals decide to name themselves, replacing the code numbers that the High Evolutionary gave to them. We see Rocket deciding on his name, and it's a powerful moment because he's taking ownership in a situation where many things have been robbed from him. As a lab animal, he initially has no family, identity, or meaningful relationships. But when Rocket decides on his name, he's not only growing into his own self, but he's forming a relational bond with Lila, Teeths, and Floor, who are his first surrogate family on screen. In the end, the flashback scenes also set up the eventual showdown between Rocket and the High Evolutionary, especially when the villain's ship sends creatures to invade the Guardians' home base of nowhere. When the two characters face off, we as an audience already have a backstory to understand what's at stake for their fight, and this draws us closer to Rocket's side, as we now know why the High Evolutionary needs to be stopped. So overall, the flashback scenes in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 perform multiple functions in the story structure of the film. They add a sense of gravitas and a deeper understanding of pain and regret, adding to the subtext of the character arcs. It's a fitting installment of the series trilogy, which potentially could be the last time we see this crew of characters together on screen.